Good day to everybody. Welcome to 7th International Conference on Software Engineering and Computer Systems 2021 at Malaysia. Our research paper is Comparative Study of QoS Parameters of Different Web Services. We four jointly did this activity. Myself, Muhammad Abul Kalam Azad, along with me, Muhammad Salekul Islam, A.K.M Muzahidul Islam, and Muhammad Saddam Hossain Mukta jointly did this research activity. I am presenting this paper for your convenience. For any queries on this paper or anything related to this work, if you want to reach me, you can email me or you can send me SMS in this regard. Thanks for your patience. I expect your patience to hear the rest of the paper. Let me go to the abstract. Web service plays an important role in the new paradigm of distributed computing over internet. Web service actually allow to combine different service into a single service. There is two major components of the web service. One is OSDL and another one is SOAP. OSDL actually describes the web service, how it's actually work and how it is function. SOAP define the communication between the application over the internet. So for combining web service, QoS is important parameter to combine the web service into a single service. In the introduction, we like to highlight that web service actually is a platform independent internet enabled service that are developed for some specific business need. For web service, reusability and interoperability are two important features. For constructing distributed application, web service can be published and accessible over internet and compare intranet. So QoS, quality of services, become critical criteria for determining a service provider's success. This figure demonstrates how web service actually work. It has three major components. One is SOAP, another one is OSDL, and third one is UDDI. Actually, UDDI publishes the web server. It acts like a broker, and from the UDDI client get the particular web service, and web service is defined at the language of WSDL, web service description language. The protocol we use to access the web service is SOAP, Simple Access Object Protocol. There are three main characteristics for web service. First of all, they are XML based. They are loosely coupled. They can be synchronized or asynchronized in their functionality. The rest of the paper is organized in three areas. First of all, we identify the practical QoS measurement techniques. Secondly, we measure the QoS parameter in quantitatively for publicly available web service. Lastly, we identify the technique to improve the QoS parameter. We have reviewed several work related to this web service QoS parameter. First of all, at Zhang, the dynamic replanting and target of optimizing global QoS, we reviewed a novel method which has been proposed by Rangarajan, the predicting of the web service QoS parameter. We also reviewed Silva proposed a generic algorithm based on technique to make composition of web service and optimize the solution to enhance the QoS. Here we will describe three parameters regarding to QoS of web service. First parameter is response times. Actually, response time, if you see the diagram, in response time, the time between T3 and T1, and this response time is actually a combination of reaction time plus receiving time. When a client sends a request at T1 time, it actually start receive a writing at T2, and finally it gives all the response at T3 time. So the difference between T2 and T1 is the reaction time, and response time is the difference between T3 and T1. We actually define this response time in milliseconds. Now we'll calculate reliability. It is calculated by finding a percentage of time an event is successfully complete. If it is the number of days that a web service observes for the purpose of collecting the number of failures, small n is the total number of failures that occur particular time, and capital N is the total number of events recorded during that period. Then we can calculate the reliability as below. Ratio of failure in T days equal to small n divided by capital N. Daily average failure rate is small n divided by capital N into T. Success rate or reliability equal to 1 minus small n divided by capital N into T. That is the equation for reliability. The third component we calculate for QS is robustness. Robustness actually how it can recover from the fail. Here we have to consider for reliability MTTF, mean time between failure, MTTR, mean time to recover, and MTTF. So at the initial system is up and it goes for down, and again it go to up after recovery. So here it is the first failure and it is the T+1 failure. The last component we consider for QS is the security. In the web service nowadays we fetch lots of security attacks. Few of them are SQL injection, XPath injection, boundary scan, invalid type, XBOM, and malicious attachment. And finally, we also find cross-site scripting. If you like to measure the security, then security equal to the number of detected attack divided by number of simulated attack. How we set up this experiment? In this experiment, we use SOAP-UI. It is being free tools for web service testing, including it does inspection, simulation and mocking, functional checkup, compliance and safety testing. We also use web inject. A collection of test cases can be combined into logical function for a single group. For this research activity, we selected below 5 public web service providers. We used 3 web services from this public web service provider. One is weather, because it's forecast the weather, currency conversion, and unit conversion web service. Experimental design. In this experiment, we actually design test case using SOAP-UI and web inject, and then finally simulate the experiment in Visual Studio.NET environment to identify the result. After doing series of activity and simulate the result, we identify different value. Like for weather web service, we find response time in millisecond. We can see from different web service provider, the response time vary. Like from Stack Overflow web service, red one is maximum, green one is minimum, and brown is average. So from Stack web service, we found that maximum response time near to 20,000 milliseconds, but for other web service like web services, it is near to 1,200. And similarly, currency web service, we found from Stack Overflow, maximum response time is highest. It is near to 1,279. And other web service like X method, it's 1,160. So in the discussion, we found that based on the web service provider and their distance and their network traffic and number of hooks, response time actually differ. And average response time may be something, and minimum response time also differ from the total maximum response time. So load balancing in that case, load balancing is a technique to optimize the response time proactively by routing user requests to different systems. If you go to the reliability metrics for the QS, we found different reliability metrics or result from different web service providers for same web service. Like whether web service from X method, their reliability is 0.9673, and other web service like stock overflow, their reliability is 0.95. For current web service, we find highest reliability from X method, it is 0.9890, and lowest from programmable web, it is 0.93. So reliability also vary from web service provider to web service provider. So among the service provider we have studied X method, what we already discussed, and X method can be the most reliable service provider for either and currency web service respectively. So how can we improve the reliability? Use of SOAP by Java messaging service rather than HTTP can be helped to improve the reliability of critical web service. In the last component security, if we analyze the security result, we found that from the X method, we simulated 9 attacks. Among the 9 attacks, it can detect 6. So its security is 0.66. And for X web service, which can detect highest number of attacks, and their security is 0.88. And lowest, both is programmable and free web service, they can detect 5 attacks out of 9. Similarly, for currency web service, we can identify that programmable OL can detect 4 attacks out of 9 attacks. So their security is lowest among the studied web service provider. So how can we improve the security of the web service? If we follow the WhatsApp guideline for application development or web service development, that can really help to boost the security of the web service provider. So in conclusion, we like to say, in this activity, in this research work, we identify 3 major QoS parameters, namely response time, reliability, and security mathematically, and measure their result in quantitatively for their public web service. Most of the time, addressing one QoS parameter has a positive or negative impact on other QoS parameters. And because of web service hosted over the internet, predicting their behavior is extremely challenging. So in that case, statistical data may not always provide an accurate estimate of QoS parameters. So historical data can be better to give better result of this web service provider for over a period of time. Finally, we did this experiment for SOAP-based API. In future, we can do this activity, this analysis for RESTful API. And hosting web service play a vital role in terms of response time, and their design really play a good figure how can we get the better response. Finally, thank you everybody for your patience and listening this experimental result and paper activity. So I appreciate your effort and appreciate your time for this conference. So if you have any queries or question on this, you are most welcome to address this question and query to me. Thank you finally.